This edition of MacVoices is supported by you, our viewers and listeners, through our new Patreon campaign. If you get value from MacVoices, please consider helping support the show by visiting patreon.com/MacVoices. Hi, I'm Chuck Joyner, and this is a MacVoices briefing, 5 security and privacy tips. Folks, this is the start of a new MacVoices series where I plan to deliver security and privacy tips to you 5 at a time in the hopes that that makes it a little easier to swallow and a little easier to implement rather than having to run through a list of 10, 20, 30 things, because there are lots of security and privacy tips out there. So 5 at a time, and we'll try to make it easy on you. I want to make sure that we set some ground rules here. First, these tips are not going to make you absolutely secure or absolutely private. There probably is no such thing. Second, we all know that security and privacy is a pain. It's inconvenient. It makes you do things you don't want to do. It puts barriers in front of you to being the most productive you could possibly be. But when you consider the alternative, I think they're well worth it. So this is not going to protect you completely from the bad guys, but will hopefully make you just a little bit less of a target, so that if the bad guys come knocking, they're going to find that, gee, you're not quite as easy as maybe some of the other people out there, and they're going to move on. That's not to say we want to throw anybody under the bus. They're welcome to implement the same privacy tips and measures as well. But at the end of the day, you and I both know they're friends, family, co-workers who do not follow good privacy and security guidelines from the ground up. And so maybe you can educate them, maybe you can share this with them, but at the end of the day, this is about you being more private and secure. Here we go. Number 1, use complex passwords. I know this is one you're tired of, and you're going to tell me that you're probably already doing it. And if you're using a password manager, you probably are. I hope you are. But if you're not, it's time to adopt a password manager and start generating and using, honest-to-God, complex passwords. Now, there are a couple ways you can choose your complex password manager. My personal guidelines are that I want someone that's been around the community for a while, has a good reputation, is known, because after all, I am giving them my passwords to secure and feed back to me when I need them. So that's why I don't want the guy that just published a brand new password manager yesterday. He might be fine. He probably is fine. But why not go with someone who has a bit better reputation and a bit more experience? So my choice, and there are plenty of fine choices out there. My choice always has been and is 1Password. Several reasons for this. First of all, it integrates well with all of your browsers. Second, it gives you easy access to all of your passwords within its own app. Third, it checks online to see if your passwords have been compromised. Fourth, it generates its own complex passwords very easily from within every browser that you have, so that you don't have to worry about it. And 5, it gives you indications if your password might be compromised or is too simple, and encourages you to change it. Now, one thing about 1Password is the best version of 1Password is a subscription service. And I know that there are a lot of you out there who are not fans of subscription services, and that's fine. But if there's one thing that you want to pay a subscription service to, it is a password manager. Because the bad guys are constantly improving their techniques and their methods, and so you want a password manager that is right there with them, constantly being upgraded, updated, improved, so that it keeps you secure. That's one reason I absolutely feel that the subscription issue is a non-issue when it comes to your password manager. You want something that's out there, and 1Password is constantly making updates and upgrades. And if you don't believe it, go back and look at the changelog that they issue with every single update, and you'll see that they are constantly improving. They're fixing bugs, they're improving services, and they're doing all of that. And best of all, 1Password can be cross-platform, so you can have a PC at the office and a Mac at home, an iPhone, an iPad, whatever, and you still have access to all the same 1Password features. So 1Password is my choice for complex password manager. Now, again, you're going to want to make sure that you use 1Password and their complex password generator to create those passwords for you. And that's critical. Just buying 1Password won't do it. You have to use it. So please, go check out 1Password. And by the way, they're not sponsoring this show. They're not a sponsor of MacVoices. I'd love to have them as a sponsor, but that's the one I use. And I think if you do that, you improve your security automatically. Number 2, use two-factor authentication. I know this is another one that you've heard about for a long time. You've probably even been forced into using it on some services. But at the end of the day, you need to be using two-factor authentication on every single service that offers it. And if services like your bank or your financial institutions don't use it, you need to contact them and ask them why, or if they do offer it, turn it on. If you go back in the archives of MacVoices, you'll find out my story of having my Twitter account hacked a while back. And the simple reason was I did not have two-factor authentication turned on. I thought I had everything turned on, and somehow I missed Twitter. And guess what? That's the one the bad guys found, and they took over my Twitter account. And it took me several months to regain control of it. It was a royal pain. The amount of time I wasted is embarrassing compared to the amount of time it would take to implement and use two-factor authentication. So I'm a walking, talking example of this. If you're not sure, go through all your critical services right now and turn on two-factor authentication. And yes, the way it works, in case you're not familiar, is when you go to log in, you put in your name, your hopefully complex password, and then they will text you or message you either within an authentication app or just as a straight text message, a 4 or 5 letter number code to your phone. Enter that and you're finally logged in. So it means you have to have your phone with you. But again, that's part of the security. So two-factor authentication is a second essential step to security and privacy. Number 3, use a VPN. This is another popular one, folks, but a lot of people don't completely understand it. So just in case, we're going to run through it real quick. When you're at home on your Wi-Fi network, you can feel pretty secure because you're logging into your own network that you know is connected right to your ISP, and that's it. The odds of having a man-in-the-middle attack or anything like that at home are pretty minimal. But if you're going out to a hotel, to a coffee shop, to wherever, and a restaurant, and connecting to their Wi-Fi, you really don't know exactly who you're connecting to. So a VPN is a good idea. VPN is a virtual private network. What it means is once you establish your connection with, let's say, the restaurant Wi-Fi, you connect to your VPN provider, and then that provides a safe, encrypted way to communicate to the outside world, and everything is going through that so that you are not giving the hotel or restaurant any of your information. Now, when picking a VPN, you have to be very careful because, after all, you're trusting them to see your traffic. The very thing that you're not letting the restaurant do, you're letting your VPN provider do. So you want to check that out. I personally have had really good luck with private internet access, and I can recommend them highly as being very reliable, very easy to use, and frankly, very affordable. There are plenty of other options out there. I would tell you to steer away from free options because, at some point, they have to make money too. And so how are they making money? Are they showing you ads? And can they show you enough ads to make the services they provide to you viable? I don't know. But I personally feel better paying for my VPN to make sure that I'm not the product that the VPN provider may be selling. Again, there are a couple fine free VPNs out there, and a lot of these VPNs are probably very legitimate. But one more time, just like with your password management software, I want someone that's been around for a while. I want someone that is highly rated in all the ratings that I can find, and that has a reputation of not sharing anything. Not that I'm doing anything nefarious. That's not the point. The point is that I don't want any of my private information being sucked up by anybody that I don't intend to have. Number 4, cover your webcam. Okay, this may border on just a little bit of paranoia, but why not? You have a webcam on your iOS devices. You have a webcam on your Mac. You have webcams probably all over the place. Maybe you have Amazon Alexa devices. Maybe you have other devices that have cameras in them. When you're not using them, find a way to block that camera in an analog fashion. It can be something as simple as throwing a piece of cloth over the webcam. It can be something a lot more complex. I personally would recommend these little stickers that go over your webcam, that they peel on, peel off very easily. They're very unobtrusive so that you don't even know they're there if you don't want to. And it's just one more thing that I don't have to walk in and wonder, gee, is it possible my webcam has been hacked? Now, the new version of macOS Mojave, has implemented some things that make your webcam even more secure than before. But at the end of the day, the one thing that a hacker absolutely can't defeat unless he is getting into your home is an analog cover, like the one I recommended, or just like a simple cloth. I admit this does not take care of anything regarding the microphones in your devices. That's something we'll talk about in a future show. But for right now, an analog device like this, an analog solution, unless the hackers can get into your house and remove it, is going to stop it absolutely. Number 5, shred your documents. Okay, folks, I am not paranoid, but I do see credit card offers come into my home through the mail. I see catalogs with all kind of barcodes on them. I see solicitations for financial services. I see all of these things come in, and I don't know what information sometimes is even in the envelopes if I bother to open them, or maybe what might be printed on the outside of the envelopes. And I don't see any reason to send all that information to a landfill or to let it leave my home intact. So I am encouraging you to go out and buy a shredder and just stuff pretty much all of your mail into it as you go through. And of course, that might include the things that you do receive that have confidential information: credit card statements, financial statements, notes from your bank, your stockbroker, your insurance company, whatever. If you don't have a good way to archive them digitally, you probably hang on to them. Even so, they need to be shredded as well. The days of having your social security number on documents is probably, hopefully, pretty well gone. But anything that is considered private information, I really am not anxious to have leaving my home. So I encourage you to go out and buy a shredder and stick everything that comes into your mail. If you're not keeping it, shred it. The only thing I really don't shred at this point are some of like the pulp paper shoppers that come in my neighborhood. But pretty much everything else goes in the shredder after I'm finished with it. First of all, it does make it easier to take the trash out because everything is nice and compact and shredded. But more important, I can feel pretty good that somebody's going to have to go through an awful lot of work to try to reconstruct anything that I have shredded. A couple tips on buying shredders. You don't need something super expensive. Start out with something simple like this Amazon Basics shredder, which is the one that I use. It will take up to 8 sheets at a time. It will shred credit cards, and it does not require you to remove staples or paper clips. And that last one is really important because I guarantee you, if you have to start digging out paper clips or staples from things, you're not going to do it, and you're just going to say, and throw it in the trash can and never send it through the shredder. This is also a cross-cut shredder, which is the kind you want because it's a lot harder to reassemble documents that have been cross-cut. Nothing is impossible, of course, but it's a lot more difficult. And it's inexpensive. Now, I'll tell you, if you shred a lot of documents, well, you're probably going to be replacing this every 2 to 3 years because it is a mechanical device and sooner or later will wear out. You can buy some oil to try to lengthen its life, but at the end of the day, just recognize this is an expense you're going to bear. But you're also going to be a lot more secure. One other tip, if depending on, again, how many documents you have or whatever, the bigger the trash bin of the shredder, the better. Now, that also means that the device is bigger and a little more inconvenient, so it's a trade-off. But a bigger bin means you have to empty it less, and therefore you're more likely to use it. One last tip. You know, if you've been following my MacVoices travel tips series, that I advocate taking all of the paper you generate on a trip, including all the receipts, all your hotel keys, your boarding passes, your luggage tags, anything and everything that might have anything that's personally identifiable, sticking it in an envelope and bringing it home with you and dealing with it there. And this is what you do with it when you get home. You shred it. because there's some very legitimate reasons that those folks need to encode that information on some of those documents. They need to know who you are, your address, your contact information, and all that, if they need to reach you for some reason. But it also means that it has a lot of information on you, and that's exactly the kind of thing that you want to put in your shredder. So go pick a unit of your choice, and happy shredding. So that's it for this MacVoices briefing on privacy and security tips. There will be more, because there are so many great tips out there that you really need to be aware of. But I think that delivering 5 at a time means that you will hopefully take these 5, implement them, and move forward with maybe the next 5 when we deliver them. If there are any questions, comments, if you have favorite security tips or privacy tips, drop me an email, chuck@macvoices.com, or post them to the MacVoices Facebook group, or contact me on Twitter @ChuckJoyner. I'd love to hear from you about what you think of these and what some of your favorite tips are, because the more secure we can make all of us, the better off we all are. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our MacVoices Facebook group, and get more out of your Apple Tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices, and join these folks who help keep MacVoices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.